What's up guys, welcome back to Code with Clinton. So in this video I'll show you how to create dependent forms in Django. This is what I mean here, instance. So as me, you are filling a form online and you see we have a country field and we also have a city field, you understand. So this country field has two countries in it. So I want to return the cities for a particular country. Let's assume I click on Nigeria. Down here you can see I have cities in Nigeria. So let's assume I pick America. In the city field, I have cities in America. So I'll show you how to create a dependent form in Django. Look at the other way around. So you can see this form I have, on this page. So currently, if I pick America and click on the city field, you can see I have all the cities, everything packed together. Well, in this video, I'll show you how to create dependent form whereby a particular field can depend on the parent field, you understand. So the city field is the child field in this case. So the parent field is the country field. So I'll show you how to create a dependent form in Django. So that's what I'll do. We're getting started right now. Okay, so the goal of this video is to make this form. You can see this form is not acting properly. If I click down on the city field, I can see I have all the cities. I don't want this. So I want to make this form look like the one we have on this other tab. So if I click on Nigeria, click on the city field, you can say I have cities in Nigeria. If I click on America, click on the city field, I have cities in America. And this can also save to our database. Once I fill the info, put in the name, and put in a name there, and put in the right city, you pick a city and save, it gets to the database, you understand? So in this video now, I'm going to show you how to create this dependent form. But before I proceed, I'm going to explain the basic part. I've already written the code already. So I'm going to simply explain the basic parts. As you get to the more complex parts, I'll write the code, you understand? These are the basic parts of the tutorial. So as you get to the complex part, I'll start writing the code. So we are getting started right now. Okay, here we are now. Just on the left side, you can see I have a Django project called dependent form, and inside of the project I have an app called personal. You understand? So this is our Django project called dependent form, and the app is called personal. Understand? So currently I'm in the models.py file of the app called personal. You can see I have the person model, I have the country model, and I also have the city model. You understand? So if you watch closely, the country and city are connected via a foreign key, a one-to-many relationship, whereby a country can have many cities, you understand? So, and after I did this, now I have to connect all of them down to the person model via a foreign key, you understand? So this is the models.py file you get. So now what next? Now I'm going to go down and create a model form in the forms.py. You understand? I'm just going to save this data to the back end from the front end. So I'm going to use the model form. So currently this is my forms.py file. You can see I currently have this person form. This is simply a model form to save data from the front end to the database. You understand? So currently, if you watch closely, I'm going to close down this. So we are working with this one that is not working fine. So if you watch closely, I have the list of countries, and I don't want this. If I click on Nigeria, you can see I have the list of countries. If I click on America, I see the list of countries, but I want to avoid this stuff, whereby I want to make sure that this does not drop down anything. So I've written this code earlier before, so I'm going to simply do a simple copy and paste to explain further. So currently on what I've written before, so I'll simply open my forms.py file, so I'll copy this init function. So this code will be on it will be on GitHub, so you can check, so you can use the source code for your project, understand? So I'll simply copy this. So I'll minimize and go back to my main. So here we are now. So I'll simply paste this down here. So paste it here and it should be fine. So what this does is that we are trying to prevent the drop down of the cities. Instead, we're trying to prevent this thing from dropping down. So that's why I had to do this. You can see, look here, we said city.objects.none. Understand? We want to make sure that the city does not drop down. You get. So once I refresh the page, so everything should be fine. So resend. So let's see now. Click on city. Ouch. So the city isn't dropping down, it's still dropping down. So like there should be an error in the code. Oh, this is a mistake. This should be outside of the class meta, so it should be outside. So I think it should work now. So once it's done reloading, so go on again and refresh the page. So let's see. You can see the city is no longer dropping down again. So this is one step we've gone through. So the next step is, before I proceed to the next step, I need to explain this init function. Understand? So this init is coming from the model form. Understand? It's coming from the model form we have here, and through this init we are able to make sure that the city does not drop. We make sure that the city returns none whenever it's being queried. You understand? You can see just from here. So that's it now. So now, wow. So now we are going to move down. So we have made the model form to create persons. You understand? So now we are going to import this form into the views.py file and work on the forms there. So currently, so I'm going to just comment this out for now, or you can just leave it at the bottom. I'll comment it out for now. It's not needed now. Okay. And go down to the urls.py file and also comment this guy. If not, there'll be an error. So now we're on the views.py file. Currently, these are our views.py. In the views.py, this is where we render the form we got from the forms.py file. You can see we imported the form from forms.py. We imported the form, and in this person function, we had to work on the form. Instead, we said form should be equal to person form. So if there's a post request, we get the data, which is request.post. So we check if the form is valid. So the form is valid, we save the form to the database, you understand? And then we add this return render, we return the person.html and pass in the form in the context you get. Okay, so now after we've done this, now this is the template. I've already created the template already. So the template is already ready already. I have the template ready. So now this is it here called person.html. You can see I have a template folder instead of the app called personal, and inside of the folder I have a file called person.html. So now this is our file. This is a simple HTML file. You can see here's our form section you get. So simply I have the form, which is this form. So I look through the form, I look through it. So after looking through the form, I have this label. This is the form label. This is the actual fields of the form. Understand? So the for loop ended here, and this is our submit button you get. So, and just at the bottom here, I added some styles to the form with JavaScript. You understand? So these are simple form, and on the top I have some basic styles for the form you get. So these are the basic stuff. These are just basic things. I'll put the source code on GitHub so you can practice yourself. You understand? So after I've done this, now this is where the main thing comes in. So what we want to do now is this. We want to make sure that whenever we pick a country, whenever you pick a country, we want to send the ID of this country to the back end, and through that ID we are going to get the cities for that country. That's what we want to do. So we are going to use the fetch API from JavaScript to achieve this. So we are doing that right now. I'm going to explain the basic workflow of what we want to do. You understand? So what we want to do is whenever we pick a country, a change event occurs. You understand? So when that change event occurs, we want to trigger a function that sends the ID of the country we picked to the back end. And in the back end, we are going to get the cities for a particular country using the ID we sent. So that's what we want to do now. So we're going to use JavaScript fetch API to send this ID to the backend. So we're doing that right now. So now we're going to go down to our VS Code. Now this is my index. This is the template I showed you earlier, person.html. You get, so this is the script section. And this script you see here is what I used to add the styles to the web, to this page you see on the screen. Stand. So just on top it, I'm going to use JavaScript fetch API. You understand? So before we do that, I need to select this. I need to select this field called country. So I just simply right click on it, inspect. I'm going to see the ID, and I'll pick this field through its ID. You understand? So in the inspect box, so it's still loading. So if you watch closely, where is it? You can see it's called ID underscore country. That's the ID of the field. So I'll simply say let country underscore field equal to documents dot get elements by ID is called ID underscore country. Understand? So what I want to do is that I want to listen for an event, a change event. Understand? So whenever you're picking a country, you are triggering a change event. So I'm going to simply say country field dot add event listener. So I'll be adding an event listener, and the event is going to be called a change event. So now whenever this event occurs, we want to trigger a function, want to call a function. So we are going to call this function get country ID. Understand? So this function is called get country ID. So now I'm going to create this function at the bottom here called get country ID, and it's going to hold the parameter. This is the event element. Understand? The event element called E. You can give it any name you like. So I prefer calling my E. So after you've passed an E there, so want to console out the elements we clicked on. Understand? So I'm going to simply say console.log. Console.log is the same as the print in Python. You get. So I'm going to say console.log e.target. Console.log e.target. Understand? So you're going to print out, you're going to console out the item, the element we clicked on. So let's see if it's working. So go down to the browser, refresh this page. So I'm going to click on America. So if you see right down here, you can see it says America. You understand? We clicked on America, so it's working now. So what we want to do is this. Now we want to get the ID of those countries. Okay, so I was saying, want to get the ID of those countries. Let's see if we can of the countries. Understand? So watch closely. This is select box. You can see select box in the console is very tiny. It's very tiny. Sorry for that, but I'll try my best to show you. You understand? So the select box is what is housing the countries, which is Nigeria and America. Understand? So I'll open the select box right now. Once I open it, oh no, it should be in the inspect element. So you can see this is select box. You can see it. As I opened it, you can see we have the two options, which are Nigeria and America. Understand? And you can see the value attributes holds their ID. The ID of Nigeria is 1, while the ID of America is 2. So I want to get this value. I want to get the value of this attribute called value. You understand? So that's what I want to do right now. So I'll simply say just up here. So I'll simply say console.log e.target.value. So I'm going to get the ID because the ID we automatically placed in the value attributes. You understand? So all we have to do now is just refresh now. So I'll simply refresh the code. So and now I'm going to make this smaller. Okay, so now just simply pick one of the countries. So go down to the console. You can see we have 1. So I'm going to pick America this time. You can see we have 2. It's working. So we want to send this ID to the backend using the fetch API. You get. So now I'm going to simply send this one to the bottom. Let it get down. Okay. So I'm going to put this e.target.value into a variable. I'm going to simply say let's country. I'm going to say let's country ID. Let's country underscore ID equal to e.target.value. Understand? So we're going to send this to the back end. You get. So now I'm going to show you the fetch API. So I'm going to use the documentation on the internet. So let me say fetch API. So fetch API. Oh, my network is quite. Okay, so simply look up fetch API on the internet. So fetch API. So run the code. So just simply click on the search button so you can read the documentation and understand it by yourself. You understand? Okay, so here's the documentation on the fetch API. So use the second link so you can read on the fetch API and get more information on what it talks about. You get. So after you've done this now, this is the fetch API documentation. So just read through it and you understand what it says. So now we're going to use it right now. You get. So now this is the data we want to send to the backend, the country ID. We want to have this on the back end. You get. So before we do that, we are going to create a view that is going to get this ID. So go down to views.py. So now I'm going to create a view. So I'm going to simply remove this one we have. Now call it get cities, or okay, get cities, and it's going to have the request arguments. So now I'm going to simply return a JSON response. Say return JSON response, and you need to import the JSON response. I've done that at the top. You can see you have to import JSON response from Django.http. You get. So after you've done that, now you simply put in the message you want to receive whenever there's a success. Whenever there's a success request, understand? Whenever there's a success response, you want to print out this message. You can put in whatever you like there. So after you've done this, you must make sure you put safe equal to false. If not, it's going to try an error. So safe equal to false. So now this is the view that is going to get the ID. So I'm going to create a URL for this views.py file. So now let's do that right now. So I have a URL here already, so I'll simply remove the comments and it's going to work. So now it's going to point down to views.getCities. Now our view is called getCities, so it's going to point down to views.getCities. Okay, that's fine now. So after we've done this, go down to the person.html file. So now this is our, so now we are going to use the fetch API. So I need to, I'll copy the one we have here and explain how it works. So you can see we are going to use this one. Okay, we are going to use this one here. Copy and explain how it works using this method. So now this is the fetch API syntax. So we are going to use it. So now this is the URL we are sending the data to. Understand? So and we've done that here. So I'm going to simply pick this. It's called cities. So this is how we are going to do it now. So I'll simply say, so come down. Oh no. So now you're going to simply create a variable called URL. It can be called any name you like. So I'm going to call my URL. I select URL equal to. So I'm going to use a normal way we used to do it, which is like this. So the %sign URL, and the name is called cities. This stand from the us.py file. As you can see, so we pick this stuff from here. So we want to send this to this. We want to send the data to this URL, and this URL points to this views.py file we have here. Understand? So that's it now. So now so we have made our own URL. So we are going to replace the one we have inside here. It's URL. Understand? So you know it is a post request. We are trying to send the data to the backend. It's the post request. So method is post. So content type is application/JSON. So if you watch closely, you can see we have a variable called data. I copied, it's coming from the fetch API. Understand? This is what I copied. Understand? Uploading JSON data. So now we have this variable called data. This is what we are actually sending to the backend. We are sending this data to the backend. Understand? So we are going to make sure that this data points to our country ID. So we are going to call this ID. We'll give the username a key name of ID. So after we've done that, now we are going to set the ID to our country ID, which we're going to send to the backend. So simply say country ID now. So this is what we are trying to send to the backend. It's an object you get. So now just at the bottom, you follow the flow. We have the method, which is a post request. We have the headers, which is the JSON application. So on the body now is what we are sending to the backend. So you can see this is an object in JavaScript. So you need to convert this object to a string. So we are going to use this method called Json.Stringify. So Json.Stringify is going to convert this object to a string, which instant, and that has been done over here. You get. So after you've done this, now we are going to send a promise. So after that, this is where we are going to print our actual message. Understand? So if there's an error, this catch block throws the error. You get. So now once we try to push this data, we are going to receive and we are going to get an error. Understand? This function runs whenever there's a change event on the select field. So let's see if everything is fine. So go down to the browser right now, and this is the cities now. So refresh the page. So now I'm going to pick a country, so Nigeria. So there's an error, and let's see what it talks about. It threw a 403 error. You understand? And this is very, very normal. Whenever we are using a post request in Django, we normally throw the CXRF token into the form. You understand? Whenever we are making a post request, we used to pull the CSRF token into the form, which is very, very important. And now we are trying to make a post request again. For this time, we are using JavaScript, and we also need to put in that CXRF token. You understand? But how can we do that in JavaScript? So I'm going to show you now. So just research, go down to the internet right now and search for Django Ajax CXRF token. So now you see how it's being done. So just click on the first link you have here. So the first link is going to do it. So it's going to open. So it's loading. So now just scroll down. You see what we are using here. The fetch API is actually from Ajax, and Ajax is under JavaScript. You get? So that is it now. So you can see this function we have here called getCookie. So we're going to simply copy this function. So let's copy this function. So I'm going to come down to our JavaScript now. So we're going to paste this at the extreme top. So just Ctrl V, paste it there. So after we've pasted, so we're going to put this down here. So after we've done this now, we are not done yet. So if you scroll down also, we need to also add this XCXRF token into the headers we have over here. Understand? So these headers we have here, so we need to add an extra key value pair. You get? So now we'll simply copy this one, copy this, and we'll paste it just at the bottom of this content type. So you paste, and that's it now. I think everything should be fine after you've done this. So just save your work now. We can now make post requests using Ajax or JavaScript through the fetch API. You get? So now close the browser and refresh the page. So now if we want to pick a country, you can say we have a success message that says it's working, everything is fine. So now we've been able to send the ID to the backend. It's working. So now after we've sent it to the backend, now we need to get the ID in this views.py file. So in this function called get cities. So we're going to get it right now. So before I get there, I also hope you understood the fetch API stuff I did here. First of all, we try to get the select field. We go to select field. After we did that, we try to listen for a change event. So whenever a change event occurs, I explained what the change event is. Whenever we pick a country, a change event takes place. So whenever that event occurs, we trigger a function gets executed, and this function helps to send the data, the ID of the country, to the backend. You get? So that's what the function does. So now that it is working, so you can see the function here. First of all, we got the ID instance. So after we got the ID, so we then brought in the fetch API instance. So this is the data that sent. This is where the ID was being placed. You can see data. We have this key called ID, and the actual ID is called country ID from the top here. So now that at this point, now this is the URL we are sending our data to. So now we now did it using the fetch API. You get? So just read through it, you understand everything. I'm going to put the source code on GitHub so you can go through it yourself and understand. So now the views.py file is here. Now we are going to get the ID we sent. So we'll do that right now. Okay, at this point we are going to get the ID in the views.py file. So first we need to import JSON at the top. So now we're going to create a variable called data. You can give it any name you like. So I'm going to call my data. So data, I'm going to simply say should be equal to, that's going to be JSON.load. That's why I say you need to import JSON at the top. So I'm going to say requests dot body. Understand? This request is coming from the request argument, and the body is coming from the fetch API. This key called the body. This is the key that is where we have our data converted to a string. It was once an object at this point, but on this part, this is what sends the stuff to the backend. This is the actual stuff. This body key. Yeah. So how we did this to set request of the body. So now we are going to actually get the ID itself. So I'm going to simply say country. I'm going to simply say, let's just say simply country underscore ID should be equal to, I'm going to simply say data. And data is coming from what we define on top here, data. I'm going to do the square bracket, and this is a dictionary. You get this is in form of a dictionary. You get. So now I'm going to simply use the square bracket to get the key, and the key is called ID from this point. It's called ID. Watch closely. So it's called ID. So I'm going to simply say ID. So now we've gotten the country ID. It could be 1 or 2. So I'll simply say print country ID, so you can see it yourself. Print country ID. So now whenever we go down to the browser now and I pick a particular country, so refresh the page first. So I'm going to pick Nigeria. So if I check the terminal, I'm going to increase it a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, you didn't see. Okay, so I'll try it again. So refresh this page, everything is fine. So click on America. So let's see the terminal. It is not printing, but on the console it's printing. I don't know what's wrong. So you can see we have one printed so I'm going to pick America this time around. So if I'm refreshing the page, there's no need to refresh the page, so just pick America, go down to the terminal. You can see we have 2. If I pick Nigeria, so go down to the terminal once more, you can see we have 1. So we've gotten the ID now. So we are going to filter through the cities. We're going to get the cities based on this ID. So we're going to do this right now. We're going to simply say cities should be equal to city.objects.filter. So we're going to filter the cities. So now you need to import the cities at the top, import the city model class at the top. You need to do that, which I've done that already. So now I'm going to simply say city.object.filter. So I'll simply say country. You can, if you check the models.py, the city has a country attribute. So now I'm going to simply say city.object.filter country underscore ID. So I'm going to filter this city based on its country ID. And this means say city.object.filter country underscore ID should be equal to country ID. Understand? The country ID is the actual ID. One we have here is the attribute of the city. Understand? So this is what we need to just do now. So after we've done this now, we are going to pass this city into this JSON response. Understand? So we're going to convert it to a list. Understand? So we're going to say list. Okay, going to be cities dot values. So I want to get the values of the city also. Now simply say I want to get the ID and the name of the city. So this one you just need to do now. So now I simply convert this city to a list. If I don't, I can't pass it into this JSON response. I'm going to try an error. So I did that and I had to just get the ID and the name. So we've done this now. Everything should be fine. So now we're going to go down to our HTML now. So just come down to, we're going to come to this .then response, this .then. Stand this .then, the second one, not the first one, the second one. Stand. So now let's try it again. Refresh. So I want to check out the console. I want to check out the browser's console. This is the browser's console. I want to check it out right now. So now .then now. So that's the browser. So pick a city. I'm going to pick a country again. Pick America. You can see we have the cities printed on the console. We have the list of cities for America. We have New York, Washington, and California. I pick Nigeria. You can see we also have the cities printed at the bottom. We have Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. So now, after we've done this now, we're not done. So we're going to populate the DOM with this data. So we're going to populate this page, what we are having here. So let's do that right away. Okay, so now I want to update the DOM. With the cities we got from here. You understand? So we'll do that right now. So now, first of all, we have our country field, which is this. So now we're going to do this in the second .then, in the second promise. Let me say country field. So I'm going to pass in some item into the field. We're going to say country field dot inner HTML. So I want to set it into this. I want to set it like this. You know, we have the empty section. I want to set this. So I'm going to simply inspect first. So I want to make sure that that select box has this first one, this first option, which is empty. So now I'm going to speed past that right now. Dot inner HTML is going to be equal to this. So I'm going to simply say option. Yeah. So we're going to simply say the value is empty. Stand, and it has this selected tag on it. And on the outside we have list of this dash dash dash. So I'm going to close the option. Okay. So now I'm going to put this inside. This is going to be a string, you get. So now that's it. Now there's an error, so I'm going to check what we have in the inspect. Okay, selected is equal to nothing, so I think so. So the error, okay, I see the problem. Okay, the error has been fixed. I simply, you know, we are using the double quote inside, so you need to use the single quote outside. If you are using the single quotes inside, use the double quotes outside. That's how it works. So now, after we've done this, now we're going to look through that data. Understand those cities we have here. We're going to look through the cities, and that city we have here simply represents this data you see here. So now I'm going to look through it. Now I'm going to simply say for, I'm going to say let I equal to 0. This for the first item. So we are going to simply say I should be less than data dot length. I'm going to simply say I plus plus.
0,
so
9.
So after we've done that now, so we are looking through the cities we have got. So now I'm going to put this inside of the for loop again. So I'm going to simply say, we are going to simply say country field.inner HTML should be plus equal to. So as it's looping through, it is being added. So plus equal to this option stuff we have here. But now we are going to put in the actual data inside this option, inside this value, and at this point we're going to put in the actual data. So I'm going to use the backtip this time around. The backtip, so you can use the template. So I'm using the backtip from JavaScript, so I can use the template literals. You get. So oh no, what you said. So simply Control X that and use the backtips. So now we're going to simply put in the value. We're going to use template literals from JavaScript, and we're going to simply put in data square bracket I. We're going to simply do ID. This time we are also saying we are passing the ID along and the name. So now we do the same thing at this other point. I'll simply copy this stuff, copy it, and just change it to name at the other side. So copy this stuff, Control C. This is what we call template literals, and I'll paste here and change this to name. So save now. Go down to the browser. Let's see if it works. So refresh the page. So now simply let's take this a bit down. So I'm gonna pick Nigeria. Let's see. Oh, the problem. Oh, I've made a mistake. Oh, you can see I've made a mistake. I picked the wrong field. I picked the country field instead of the city field. I should have picked the city field, not the country field. So now I'm going to change this stuff now. So that's the mistake I made. So I'm going to simply call this. So I'm going to call this city field now. Just copy this, Control C. I picked the wrong field. Sorry for that. And let's call this city field rather. City field. It's going to be called ID underscore city. That's how they do it. So city field now. So inside of the dot then block, wherever you see country field, put in city field there. Inside the dot then block. So I'm going to say city, and I'm going to also put in city. I hope you understand what we just did there. So the browser refresh the page. So picking Nigeria. Oh, there's still a problem here. So now everything should be working very fine at this point. So just check down the browser again, refresh the page. So now I'm gonna pick America. So check the city field. You can see we have a list of cities in America. So pick Nigeria. So you can see we have a list of cities in Nigeria. So once you add the name attribute now, let's say name, and let's just say Michael. So now when you try saving, we are going to have an error. So click on save. So we check the database is TMC. You can see we have 0%. So for you to see this error, I'm going to make sure I put in the form.error in the inside of the form. You understand? So I'm going to bring this a bit. So this is our form. So inside of this form, I'm going to put in form.error so you can see the errors yourself. So you're going to say form.errors. So save now. So go out to the browser one more time. So now refresh the page. So now let's try adding some data again. I'm going to simply say John. Let's say John is from Nigeria. So pick Nigeria and let's pick. You can see we have some cities. Going to pick Abuja. So save. You can see we have this error that says select a valid choice. That choice is not one of the available choices. That's true because from the beginning we made the cities to be empty from the beginning, and now we are seeing some cities now. You understand? Whenever I pick a country, you can see we have some cities, and from what we did in the form.py file, made the cities to be empty, and it's telling us that the choice we chose is not available. That's very true now. So I made some research online and I got a solution to this problem. So I'm going to copy it and paste for you to see how it works. So now I have a solution copied already. So just go down to the forms.py file. So just inside of the init function, just come down and paste this code here. So this is the code that I'm going to make sure everything works. So this is nowhere indented. It's nowhere indented. I don't know. So what was the problem? Finish it going. Why this guy should also go in? Okay, I think everything is fine now. So what we are trying to do here now is, so now if country, we try to check if country is a member of the person form. Country is a member of the person form. So after that, we have this try except block. So we tried getting the ID of the country. After we did that, we had to filter the cities that fall under this country ID in this second block inside of the try block. You understand? In this second line inside of the try block, you understand? We check to see if country is a member of the person form. It is a field in the person form. We check your models.py file. So we did a try except block. We got the ID of the country. After we did that, we have to filter out the cities. We have to filter out the cities that fall under that country. You understand? So that's what we just need to do now. Everything should work fine, and we have this elif parts. This works for whenever you want to like update a particular person. It's going to make sure that there is no error. The elif part of the code. You understand? So that's it now. So everything should work fine now. So go out to the browser once more. So I'm going to try. Let's make sure the server is running before we do anything. Okay, server is running. So now I'm going to try adding a new person. So just click on resend. I think this guy should save. Refresh the page. You can see we have John in the back end now. Okay, now so we have. So I'm going to save one more item. So pick Mary. So Mary is from America. So pick America. So pick the state. Pick the city. So save. So everything should be fine. So check the back end. Refresh the page. Oh, I mistakenly saved these guys multiple times, so I'm gonna remove. So let's check Mary first. By the way, check Mary. So you can see Mary is from America and she picked Washington as a city. If you check your form, that's what we have there. Everything is fine. Everything is working perfectly fine. So I hope you've learned something for this. I hope you've learned how to build dependent forms in Django. Everything is working perfectly fine. You get. So if you want to also update Mary's info, you could create a form for that, and it's going to also work perfectly. Everything will work perfectly. So hope you've gained some value from those videos. So if you gained some value, so subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your other Django friends. So we'll see you in the next video. Stay blessed and bye bye.